Did you know you can only find their gear at Target? It's true. So hurry over. Love is all you need.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey kids, I almost forgot that it wasn't Friday. How ironic is that, considering with the Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day. See what I mean? I don't know what day it is. I don't know what holiday it is. I've not even started drinking yet. It's probably because my guest is making me very nervous. I'm very excited to be hosting musician Sarantos today. I just real quickly because I know he's on hold, I want to do two really quick things. I wanted to announce, because huge, of course, my other radio show, of course, is dedicated to bikers and all things biker relative. This coming Saturday, September 10th, this is going to be at Milwaukee Harley-Davidson. They're hosting an event called Milwaukee Rock for Locks, obviously. It's a great family fun event. It goes from 1 to 7 o'clock. That's at Milwaukee Harley-Davidson. If you go to Facebook and look under, and it's the short version of Milwaukee, MKE, and then it's all one word, Rock for Locks, and that's locks as in a hair, LOCKS. And, of course, that's going to be benefiting the National Alopecia Areata and Rita's AREATA. Yeah, that's right. I don't know what it is either, foundation. But I can tell you that I know I'm familiar with the alopecia, and, of course, that's skin relative. So please, please do your very best to show up, and that would be this coming weekend from 1 to 7 o'clock at Milwaukee Harley-Davidson. Second of all, just a quick reminder to everybody, obviously you've been seeing me post every day about Phil Marish and his heart transplant, etc. I cannot stress enough, and I mean enough, that each and every person take it, pass it around, share it, put in a donation, $5, $10, $20. He's going to be coming on my show. I'm going to be doing an article on this. There's going to be an event at the Saloon on Calhoun. Cannot stress it enough. His name is Phil, first name, last name is spelled M-A-R-I-C-H. Please, please, please do everything you can to help. So without further ado, I'm going to stop having Sarantos hold, and let's get going with his interview.
Unmuted.
Hi.
Hey, Cindy, how are you?
I'm very nervous. How are you?
Why are you nervous?
Because you're a big deal. I mean, I've done my research and my homework, and you're a big deal.
I don't know about that. I'm an average person. I'm a normal, everyday guy, so I'm happy to be on the show, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you. It's taken us a very long time, and I apologize for the hiatus there. It was like we were all set to do the show, then I had to take a hiatus, and we've been going back and forth. So I'm very excited. There's a lot to talk about.
No worries,
I'm trying to think of where I want to start. Well, first of all, let's start at the wee beginning. You're a native of Chicago, which means obviously we're kissing cousins. I'm in Wisconsin. You're in Chicago. I know you started writing songs as a small child or as a younger person. Talk to me about some of your major – I'm curious to find out who, besides your father, was a major influence on you musically in terms of your writing style, your sound techniques, things like that.
I was definitely influenced by the 80s, so if I had to pick an era, I definitely think that's a huge influence on me, but I also listen to all kinds of music, and I am not one of these guys that's stuck in an era and says, oh, I hate today's music. So I think really I'm a mixture of 80s combined with anything in the modern era for pop and rock, and I really don't try to pigeonhole myself. I mean, I try to write all sorts of things, from rock ballads to, last month I had kind of a harder rock metal song that came out. And I like experimenting, I don't want to get stuck and release the same pop song or the same rock song over and over. So anyone in the 80s, from Bruce Springsteen to Survivor, Def Leppard, Poison, I mean, a lot of influences from the 80s, but even modern artists. So. Really?
Now, that's interesting because half the people that I talk to from Chicago, I mean, you guys are just rich and ripe with jazz music. So I'm surprised that I don't hear any jazzy sort of influence there.
I did. I mean, I've done a couple jazzy type songs, and I think the whole Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, he was so influenced by jazz, and there's an undertone there, but I can't say if I had to pick like a top genre, I don't think that's it, to be honest. I think rock is probably one, pop is two. But I love jazz. I mean, definitely.
I imagine so. Now, in doing my research, I wasn't able to find, so maybe you can talk to me a little bit about musical education. Not necessarily so much songwriting, because sometimes people just have that natural gift to write songs, but have you ever tweaked around with musical instruments or done any kind of formalized training?
My story is I guess unique, but My parents were not musical. You know, my dad owned a restaurant. I'm of Greek descent. I was born in Chicago. And they always had music on, American music, Greek music. And I was exposed to singing, dancing, and just enjoying music at a very young age. So even though they never played music, you know, they never played the guitar or the piano, it's something I always wanted to do, but for some reason I was fascinated with words and lyrics, and I started writing at a very young age, and of course I had no clue what I was doing. But through the years, I've continued to kind of hone it. I'd listen to things that were on the radio. I try to kind of analyze that, and to be perfectly honest, up until maybe about 4 years ago, I never had any musical training whatsoever, and what I've done about 6 months, a year before I decided to start doing this is I kind of self-taught myself, and I said, look, you know, I think this is great, it's creative, it's whatever, and a whole world has opened up to me, and most of that is just from things I found online, YouTube videos, courses, you know, email lists of mixers and artists, and so a lot of it has really, literally every month I have an aha moment. And I'm excited about it. You know, I've kind of tried to share the journey as is. I could have easily said, hey, listen, the stuff coming out in 6 months is going to be so much better. But I want fans to see the progression, to see the lyrics, the vocal style, you know, how things are getting better, because that's part of the journey.
Oh, definitely, without a doubt. In fact, I think that 9 times out of 10, most musicians are the first ones to run to the fans first and say, you know what, this is my foundation. Because without the fans, you can't necessarily build yourself anything. You know what I'm saying? So I'm curious to ask you, what kind of what kind of fans gravitate to you? Because you are so across the board from a musical standpoint, meaning the types of genres that you do. You must have fans everywhere from all different types, age groups, the whole 9 yards.
The short answer is I kind of do, but what you know, again, I don't have a manager, I don't have a label, I don't have a marketing agency, so I have made a ton of mistakes. I have money in wrong places. You know, everybody promises you they're going to do something, and what I've kind of realized in the last year, I've stopped pretty much advertising on social media completely. I've tried to focus on my email list, which is now almost 22,000 people, because you know, if you have a bunch of fans and you spend money to market it, you get all these fans on Facebook, but in the last year or so, you have to pay for them to even see your post. So it just didn't seem very reasonable to me. It's a great, you know, it's a cheaper way to get to fans, but to me, if I have fans, so I've kind of started pulling back and really just focusing on the songs and the story and the music. And what I've noticed is each song is a little different. So the hard rock song appealed to a certain subset of people that one of the pop dance songs, you know, they don't cross-correlate at all. And I think part of what I do, it might be unique and original, but sometimes I'm sure people that love just my rock songs are like, oh, what's this jazz song doing here? You know, so, but again, it's me. And I think it's what I'm doing. There is a certain comfort zone I have, and I'm in a certain area. And if I had to pick a genre, I'm very surprised that I appeal to, like, you know, 14 to 18 and 18 to 24-year-olds, but I do. They're the ones that share most of my stuff online. And that's surprising to me because I thought for sure I would appeal to the 30 to 50 demographic, and certain songs I do, but it's interesting. Not every song is the same. I really thought at this point I could tell you that I appeal to this demographic more so than anyone else, but and I'm not sure that's a good thing, but it varies.
Well, and what's interesting, too, is I think when you're talking about your younger fan base, let's say 14 to 18, I've started to notice people having an appreciation for what I'd call, and forgive me for labeling music, but after listening to 3 or 4 different songs, folk is the first thing that comes to mind. Indie folk. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I think there's no question. I'm an indie artist, and, you know, folk, singer, songwriter, I think those genres definitely, there's so much debate nowadays about where, you know, people try to pigeonhole into rock or pop, but I have songs specifically that are singer-songwriter, and I think people kind of like that. And I personally believe the 80s are going to come back really strong one day, and I'll be sitting pretty, but, you know, with Spotify and Apple Music, I mean, you can find anything you want nowadays, and I don't think people want to hear the same stuff on the radio over and over.
Correct. I agree with you, which is probably that's why I'm thinking with your younger dynamic, they appeal to that folk thing because, folk music oftentimes is not as structured. There isn't 18,000 instruments in it, and there's a message. People relate to messages, and you are very big on relaying messages in tons of your songs I've seen, which brings me to asking a question. Your dad. Obviously, your dad has been instrumental for a number of reasons. For you being a musician, for you being the person you are. Talk to us a little bit about what we don't get to know because your father's no longer with us. And have you written any songs about him?
I have, yeah. Last year, probably the highest rated song and the one that did the best on last year's CD was called What If I Never See You Again? And it's specifically a song I wrote about my dad a couple years after his death. I was essentially sitting in bed, not able to sleep, and I just kept thinking about him, and just the thought kept popping in my head, what if I never see him again? I try to steer clear of ever talking about politics or religion, but to me, I think whether you believe in a God of some sort, it's natural at some point in your life to question it, to be like, is it real? Is there really a heaven? Is there really a hell? And to me, I kind of always thought, okay, I'll see my dad again, and everything will be fine one day. But this night, it was just burning a hole in my soul, and I was just always, what if I never see him again? What if that's it? And it really inspired the song, which did, very well. And it, again, is, you talk about folk or singer-songwriter. This is definitely a singer-songwriter song. It's almost 7 minutes. It's not a, radio type of song that's all poppy and, dancey in 3 minutes. But it definitely tells a story, and I think the way I sing the vocals, the way the lyric, it's a story. There's no question about that, and I'm very proud of it.
Oh, and I imagine so. Well, and of course I'm gathering that he's kind of looking down on you with this huge level of pride and this ray of sunshine and saying, that's my kid, and look what he's done. Did he have the same talent as far as musical writing, singing, etc.?
So, on the one hand, I guess I don't know because even though he worked his ass off, I mean, he was always working, and I didn't see him as much as most kids, see their parent, their dad. And anytime I saw him when I was playing soccer and he came to like one game of the year, I was like, oh my God, my dad's here. And obviously I tried to impress him, but I would hear him sing. I would see him dance, and he was a great, dancer, Greek dancing, and very talented, but I never saw him write a song. I couldn't really answer that. I think, when he was an immigrant, he didn't go to college. I think he took English to learn how to speak English when he came here, but I think he was a very smart guy. I don't think he just had the opportunity to ever make a song and learn the process or do anything like that, but I certainly think he could have if he wanted to.
Oh, I imagine so, without a doubt. Now, let's turn gears for a little bit. I think one of the interesting things you touched on is something I want you to explain to the audience because I find it very unique. I am very much the same way you are in that I don't have a publicist, manager. I'm self-built, self-taught myself. Talk to me a little bit about why it's so important to you to not have a label, not have a manager, et cetera, because I think musicians need to hear that it's necessary. Sometimes for some, you need to go your own way and establish yourself, and that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. My story, this is my third year doing this. I hope at some point that I quote-unquote make it and I can reveal to the world what I do for a living and where I came from and all the mistakes I've made because I think that would be fascinating. But at this point, I don't really talk about that. But when I've had an opportunity to be with a few labels, and I think the music business is unfortunately, for lack of a better word, one of the dirtiest businesses out there, and I see artists get taken advantage of nonstop. And I've even had some publishers and people that said, hey, I'll get you on this TV show, and you give them that song and end up doing nothing, and they won't return your call for a year. But it is a very, very deceptive business, and I wasn't the kind of guy who said, hey, I'm going to move to LA and give up everything and believe everybody, and because I think in the music business, there's just a lot of deception out there. So I have absolutely no problem with, Justin Timberlake being with a label, and I think I might be with a label one day. But for me, the offers I've had, even though some of them were generous, it just didn't make sense for me. I have a day job. again, I don't talk about my family and friend situation, but I have obligations, and I can't just, I've had the opportunity to go tour for 6 months around the world, and while I want to, and while I think I need to do that to get better, I practice live performances every week. I'm always trying to get better, but it's just not in the cards for me right now. And I think if you sign with a label and you have a manager and a publisher, you lose a ton of control. Nobody is going to let me do what I'm doing. They're not going to let me give a third of the profits to charity. They're not going to, most people have a CD every 3-4 years. Most people make like 2 videos. They're not going to sit there and say, sure, make a music video every month. Why are you writing a book? Why are you writing book chapters related to your songs every month? They're just going to look at that as it's like, why are you doing that? They're not going to let me do it. No one's ever done anything like that.
I agree. And, unfortunately nowadays we live in a world of the American Idol and The Voice and all that good stuff. And so I want to talk to you about that. I always ask musicians that come on, because I have my personal opinion, which is back in the day, you didn't have the American Idols and The Voices of the world. You had to work on your own. You had to get yourself out there and sell CDs and do all that. Do you think that it's kind of made it, not the cheater's way, but you know what I mean? It's almost kind of the easy way to go from being nobody to somebody. Or do you think it's an effective tool?
Well, personally, I do not think they're effective tools, and I'll tell you why. I thought about doing American Idol at some point, and they were like, nope, you're over 25. You have to be under 25. So I was like, well, that's unfair, and then I just never did it. And then I think it was last year, I met someone who was really trying to get me to do The Voice. And, again, last year was the first time I ever even watched The Voice. I knew of these shows, but I try not to. I posted on social media a couple months ago one of the contracts, which is crazy, again, how they take advantage of these artists that are on there looking for fame, thinking they're going to. But the truth is, most people don't make it. And you can think of Kelly Clarkson, but not only are those shows overdone now, unfortunately, there's an agenda to all these shows. And, again, if you're 18, if you're 22, if you think you're going to do something special, I have learned that there's no substitute for being a grinder, putting out good songs, good videos, and just wash, rinse, repeat. You got to do it over and over. I mean, overnight sensations aren't real. They don't last. They don't have the staying power. It takes you a decade of hard work to make it. People think, oh, wow, that was an overnight sensation. It's not true. It's a sexy story, but it rarely happens. So when I kind of made my plan, I said, look, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life because I love doing it. I'm not doing it for the money. Obviously, I have lost money in the 3 years I've done this because everything costs a lot of money to make. And believe it or not, people don't want to pay 99 cents to buy your song. It's a very weird dynamic now. I think the Who's, one of the musicians from the Who was talking about the other day is like, I'd rather just stay at home. Why would I spend all that money to make an album so people can get it for, And it's just music has a very weird dynamic right now, and I don't have the answers to it other than I love what I do, and I can do it because no one's looking over my shoulder telling me that, hey, you sold 100,000 CDs and you owe us $500,000. If you're with a label and you look at some of the stories online, that's the kind of stuff that happens.
Well, and I would venture to guess that it makes a particular artist frustrated because I have a lot of dear friends that go out and they play to a crowd of 4 and they're only making $50 in that night or $100. So that musicians are married to their passion. And that's one of the neatest things I think about you people is that you could do something I can't do and you'll do it for 3 people or 2 people and you'll get paid barely nothing, but you love it and you feel it in your soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And everyone has something like that. There's something that is a passion for each of us. Some people love to paint. Some people like to act. Whatever it is, I think that's wonderful. And I'm not going to ever tell someone, hey, what do you mean you want to be a painter? What's wrong with you? But there is a bias towards musicians. If you sit in high school and college and tell someone, hey, I want to be a rock star, you're going to get looks. You're going to tell people, hey, you can't do that. You're not going to make money. And it's interesting with streaming, and there's so much more music consumption by everybody nowadays, but yet nobody wants to reimburse artists for it. And it's an interesting divide. It's crazy actually, but.
Well, and you had made a quote once, which I'd like you to explain, because I really like this quote, which is you state that your BFF literally is music. And I thought that was really cool. I was like, I've never heard that. So talk to my audience a little bit about that. I like that. That's neat.
You know, music throughout my life, again, I've had highs, I've had lows. It's always been there for me. And I think I wish, in retrospect, I started this path much, much sooner. But I also kind of believe in fate and destiny, and I think everything happens for a reason. So there's no sense in me being bitter and thinking, why didn't I start doing this when I was 20 or 25? I've always wanted to do it, but my story is my story. And I think in the old days, people thought you have to be 18 to be a rock star or to be in Hollywood. No more. It doesn't matter if you're 30, 40. In fact, my first song was Not Where I Want to Be. It was a sad song about turning 30 the next day. And I think it's okay to be who you are, whatever your story is, if you're 80 years old, if you're 50 years old. And for me personally, I've had friends, I've had a best friend, I've had a lot of very good luck in my life. But again, with my downs, music was always there for me. It doesn't judge me. It lets me be myself. And think of how many times people are in a relationship or a job, and they're not themselves. It's just the saddest thing in the world. You know, with music,
I agree.
I don't have to fake it. I don't have to pretend to be nice when I'm not in the mood to be nice. I don't have to. It allows me to express myself.
Interesting. Very nice. Now, I have to ask, because you are a resident of Chicago, my guess would be, in terms of actually going out and playing live, for instance, do you find it's more challenging as an independent artist to be booked and have gigs with the type of music you have, meaning minus the agent, that sort of good stuff? You're having to go out and pound on doors to get gigs. How successful is that for you?
It is probably the most frustrating thing I'm facing right now, and I'll explain why. I kind of realized, you know, when I released my first song, being naive, everyone thinks they're going to release their first song or video and it's going to go viral and they're going to be famous. And then I did the second and the third, and I realized, okay, well, I'll hit one of these days. And then in this year specifically, I kind of stopped thinking or feeling or hoping that I was playing the lottery. And I just started just enjoying what I'm doing. I stopped marketing a lot of the things that I was trying before, and I just kind of decided to just take the ride. And along the way, one of the frustrating things for me is if you're with a label and you have an ad agency, there's contacts. If you perform to 3 people or you have a great video, if you don't market it, if no one sees it, it doesn't really help you. And in fact, I think I heard something about, I think it's a third of the songs on Apple Music are not even bought once. So, you know, it's easy to put stuff on the Apple Store. It's easy to get stuff on Spotify. But if half the music in Spotify no one's ever heard, what benefit does that have? So along the same regard, if I don't have a booking agent or someone to help me get live gigs, that can certainly be challenging. And nowadays, everyone wants you to perform for free. And I have the additional challenge where I'm not a band. I'm a solo artist. So I have to pay a guitarist, a drummer to rehearse. I have to pay them to do a gig. So if, you know, even the cheapest gig is going to cost me at least $1,000. And when you tell people, hey, you know, I need to get paid at least this up front or I'll travel to China, wherever you want, there's such a – we talked about music consumption earlier, but everybody expects you to play for free, and they expect you to just – you know, they'll try to cheat you at the door count. They'll try to cheat you with all sorts of common schemes that they use, but it's really a significant loss. And one of the things I've had when I did the Toronto Music Festival 2 years ago, the band that I had hired 2 weeks before said, hey, we don't have passports. We can't go to Canada. So then I was left struggling, looking for a band to help. So I vowed that, you know what, it's taken me a year to find 4 band members that I can do this consistently with, and I thought I was set, and then 2 weeks ago I was going to start rehearsing and start doing more gigs, and then 2 of the guys backed out. One went to go get his PhD in piano, and the other didn't want to rehearse the guitar, and then I don't know if it was too complicated for him or what happened, but he was like, so again, it took me a year to find 4 guys, and within a week I was down to 2, and now I have to look for a guitarist and a piano person. So it is the most frustrating thing for me. The music, I'm getting better, the videos, but the band thing and the gigs, because I want to do it. I mean, you do all this rehearsal, all this practice, and to not be out there performing in front of a live crowd, it's like you're missing that payoff, that that expression of your soul.
Of course. I was just going to ask you about that because I was going to mention that you were at the Toronto Music Festival. I am just about to go to the Calgary Film Festival, actually, to do some reporting and such. And so I was curious what the Canadian audiences are like and if they're much more ripe or rich when it comes to the arts and culture, because it seems as though they embrace their musicians tightly and they advocate for them and they're very, very supportive of one another there. So I'm curious about your experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In general, they seem nicer, but I've changed my strategy. I've read a lot. I've read Tom Jackson's book. I've done, I get his email. I want to do some of this online stuff too, but there is a whole world that's opened up for me for live performance because most people just sit there. And if you're playing in a little stage and it's 4 foot by 4 foot, you can't really go anywhere. But there's a whole technique to it. It's a visual show too. And I've learned a lot about becoming a better live performer. So when I practice and I have my set list and I do all these things, completely different than it was 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. And like anything else, I think you need to practice and rehearse and get better and better and better. But at the end of the day, you also need to get out there and perform more. And I think most people want to give you the benefit of the doubt. So I kind of stopped being nervous because I've just realized I'm going to get out there if I miss a key or most people aren't going to realize that anyway. And in performance, I'm very different than most people because most people are going to just kind of play it the way it is on the CD. I like to change it up. I like to be authentic and live. I don't use auto-tune. I don't use and again, hopefully if I can play more bigger venues, there's a whole video part behind me, and there's a lot of interactive type stuff. But I'm a storyteller. I talk to the fans.
Right.
It's not a cookie-cutter show where every show is exactly the same. And that's how I want it to be. Those are the type of fans that I think I want.
I gotcha. Now, if you don't mind me asking, because I know obviously we're not going to talk about your day job, et cetera, but I do have one question that's kind of relative to that, because I saw you notate that you could spend all the way up to about 50 hours per week promoting yourself and doing your music and such. So I'm just curious, how have you learned to do a nice balancing or a juggling act here? Because for most people, they always have to carry a day job and then do their passion at night or fit it in or whatever like the rest of us. So how successful have you been at that? Has it ever been a challenge to the point where you're like, you know what, I can't do this anymore? Like I have to put music to the side for a while. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I love my day job. If I ever made it and was super successful with music, meaning that I had a profit and that I could make it my full-time career, I would still want to do my day job at least like 2 days a week and probably do that all for charity. But it's definitely challenging because, again, when you have friends and family and obligations, it is very tough because most of it happens after hours. Most of it happens on weekends when your friends or other family members are out enjoying the park and doing outdoor things and you're kind of always working on your music. I am lucky or unlucky, I guess. I'm kind of a workaholic, but I also don't need to sleep a lot. So that probably helps out. But I also, my biggest problem is I just can't turn it off. It's like midnight, 1 o'clock, and I'm like, man, I really got to get to bed. I got to get up at 5 or 6. But I lose track of the time when I'm doing my music, when I'm making videos or writing lyrics, and I just can't turn off. I don't think of it as work. I really don't.
And that's one of the things that I think makes you successful is the fact that you have that sort of attitude, because once it starts becoming work, it's no longer a labor of love, no pun intended. I mean, obviously you want to love and carry that passion and be able to keep doing that. So since you mentioned that you are a real life person, there are some personal things I wanted to talk about that the audience members may not know about you. First of all, you go to a ton of concerts. Can I just say that? Because I've gone through your Facebook page and I'm like, oh, my God, he's doing live stream right now. Like he was at Adele, he's doing live stream. He went off to this concert, he's going here. So I find it funny because you were just talking about I'm such a workaholic and I get caught up in this music. And I'm like, does he go to these concerts as like homework or something? Because you're at concerts all the time. You notice this, right?
So when I was younger, I used to love going to concerts, but one of the things they say is once you start doing something professionally like music, it kind of ruins music for you because when you don't know better, you listen to radio, you're just like, oh, this song picks me up. But when you all of a sudden start analyzing how many bars something is and the there's the bass and there's the drum and there's the tom and there's I have not found that. As I've gotten more educated about music, I love going to concerts now because I'm always taking notes on my iPhone of things that I could do in my shows. I love seeing the difference between Adele and Taylor Swift and Def Leppard and REO Speedwagon. And I think I go to like maybe 3 shows a year. So it's not, I'd love to go to a concert every other week, but I probably can't afford that because they're so expensive nowadays, but I also just wouldn't have the time for that. But I love going. And I hope, again, if it was up to me, I'd like to go somewhere once a month, but I really don't have the time for that, unfortunately.
Sure. Now, just out of curiosity, who's been your best concert to date and why?
Boy, now I have seen Def Leppard like 6 times. I've seen Bruce. I've seen Michael Jackson. I've seen Poison. I've seen a ton of, but I have to, I've seen Adele. I've seen Taylor Swift. I have to say that they're different. Like each one's different. But if I could pick one overall concert to say, and I'll tell you why too, I would pick Taylor Swift at Soldier Field. And the reason for that is because I would love to give like a small performance, acoustic, a cappella, whatever, with 10, 20, 50 people. But my fantasy is to perform in front of 60, 80,000 people. And of course, that's a whole different machine. All those dancers, the backup musicians, the light show. But to me, that's kind of like me fantasizing. Again, Adele was great if you're looking at vocals, and she's a great storyteller, and she's taking selfies on stage, and I love that part of her too. And I would kind of be a mixture between the two. It's not like I'd be sitting up there doing flips and dancing, but I could see each song would be different. I could see parts to both. And I think I'd be kind of a combination of both, to be honest with you. But just in terms of that fantasy, in terms of what I want as an end game, I would love to do something like that. I can't even imagine performing at a huge venue like that where the crowd is just and she did a great job. Yeah, I can't even imagine. I mean, I get nervous just doing my show, and it's not like people are watching me or looking at me, but there's got to be a lot of intimidation value to that. Now, kudos to all those people that do that, I have to say. Now, switching gears, you're a total nerd head, which people don't know, because I noticed your comments about different things, Star Wars in particular, which is awesome. So I got 2 questions relative to this. I promised my kids that I would ask this question. On the Star Wars side of things, I'm sure you've seen The Force Awakens. That was the new craze and whatever, and the new one's coming out this year. Okay, so we have this running fight in my house. My 9-year-old son actually just turned 10. He's like Kylo Ren. He's like Kylo Ren's poster child. Like, he's so awesome. He's so cool. I'm like, he's so not Darth Vader. And it just breaks my kid's heart. So he's like, just keep asking people. I'm sure not everybody hates him. And I'm like, I don't hate him, honey. I'm like, he's just not a villain. So I just want to get your stance on Kylo Ren. So here's my stance. I think Darth Vader obviously is the ultimate villain of all time. I think Kylo Ren, I think J.J. Abrams did a great job with him. And when I first saw it, I was like, he's trying too hard, whatever. But actually, when I watched it a second time, I was like, all right, this is cool. I don't know if you saw the SNL skit where what's that show that makes fun of Undercover Boss? You need to Google on YouTube the Undercover Boss for what's the actor's name that played Kylo Ren? I'm blanking on his name.
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver. It was hilarious. Yeah, so I saw that, and that just added a whole element. I was like, all right, Adam Driver's a really cool dude. That was hilarious. So tell your kid to watch that if he hasn't seen it, and he'll have a whole new respect for Kylo Ren.
Really? Okay, is it appropriate, though, because he's only like 10?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
No, it was on SNL. It was on major TV, so there's nothing inappropriate or. Yeah, he'll love it. It's hilarious. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is too, we're all walking around the house and they've already got like 18 conspiracy theories. Like, I just know in the next movie that Kylo Ren's going to end up being this and Rey's going to end up being this. It's like too funny. So on the opposite side of the spectrum, I saw you commenting about Suicide Squad. So, of course, my 10-year-old, of course, is a fanatic with Suicide Squad. So I got a question for you. You've seen it?
Sure. Yep.
Okay. He's in love with this Joker character. Now, I'm not going to lie. I'm a professional reviewer, and I'm thinking to myself, I like Jared Leto, but I'm here to tell you, I'm just not impressed. Am I being too harsh?
I like Jared Leto, too. I thought he deserved the award that he won for his other role, but to me,
Right.
Jack Nicholson, even Heath Ledger, I thought
Amen.
I
There
didn't
you
like
go.
his Joker character. Okay, and again, I like Jared Leto. Even he didn't seem like he liked it, and he thought it was edited, and it wasn't. They cut a lot of scenes out that he thought were going to be there, but Harley Quinn was awesome. I thought she was a star.
Oh
of that
my
movie.
God, right?
Yeah,
oh
she
my
was
God,
awesome.
yes. Absolutely, without a doubt. So they're like all excited about this and all this good stuff. That's awesome. So I think that's really cool that I would have never expected that you were a nerd, because you totally admit that you're like, I'm a nerd.
Absolutely.
So here's one more question for you on the personal side of things. Because, well, I'm not going to lie, I post up that I have people coming on the show, and then you've got, a few young ladies that were like, I wonder if that really handsome musician is single. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I do have friends, and they are single, so try to help a girl out.
Yeah, I get you. So I'm flattered, but I am taken, is what I'll say again, just because I don't want to divulge the personal stuff of exactly what's going on. But you know what?
Fine.
Again, I think I like, at some point, I hope that I make it and I can tell people about, hey, that was a major mistake in my life. That was another major mistake. Here's what I have. But, that's just kind of my story, I guess.
No, that's okay. That's perfectly understandable. A lot of times people want to know that musicians and people that perform are real live people that do real live things and all this good stuff. So it's interesting that you have that stuff.
Yeah, but why lie? All of Hollywood, who, I don't care if you're heterosexual, homosexual, I don't care if you're, and I get it, when they're like, oh, they're romantically involved just to promote the movie. But to me, even though I prefer at this point keeping my personal stuff, and even if I make it, I probably just don't want family, just to get harassed by the paparazzi more than anything else.
I get it.
But me, they can ask me anything they want, yeah.
That's kind of why I figured I'd throw it out there. Because it never hurts to ask, like I said. Some people get really embarrassed, and some people are like, whatever. So it just depends. So I like that. Sometimes personal is a good thing.
It is what it is. Yeah, there's nothing to be embarrassed about.
That's fine. I want to talk a bit about your method in terms of creating songs because, of course, obviously you've mentioned that you've written thousands of them. And what I find interesting about your music and from the writing standpoint is not only is there a very human element to it, but it just spans, as you know, a slew of emotions. So do tell me, in terms of when you're writing and creating music and writing stories and such, are you feeling those emotions as you're writing them? Because I got that sense, like, you know what, he's going through this right now, that's why he's writing this. Do you know what I'm saying? Talk a little bit about how emotion affects your songwriting process.
I think I definitely usually feel the emotion of any lyrics that I write, but sometimes it's always different. Sometimes I'll write things, I'll watch a show and I'll see a movie or I'll read a book and I'll say, hey, the last song that came out this month, I was walking by, I saw a placard about a special for whiskey, and I said, hey, that'd be cool. No one's really written a whiskey song. Let me write a song about whiskey. And then when I thought about it, I said, how cool would it be to make it about a girl or a significant other? And it can relate to a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. So there was a play on words there. So sometimes I will write a song like Whiskey that isn't specifically about me, craving whiskey, that I'm kind of an alcoholic, and then I give it up when I meet the love of my life. But then other times, like What If I Never See You Again, there are songs that are specifically about my life. And even if they're not about my life, I've always been good at empathizing, so I try to put myself in that frame of mind and say, okay, what am I trying to say? And part of the process through the last year and a half is I've learned about what is a songwriting blueprint. As opposed to just having my creative muse, I used to think, okay, this is it, right? I was working out, I heard a song, I heard a phrase and inspired this song. I'm not changing it. That's what the inspiration was.
Sure.
One of the biggest advances in my songwriting is realizing that then you got to put that away and then let the editing side of your brain take over, and that's a whole other element because when I look back on some of my other songs, I was like, oh, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't flow. Verse 3 has nothing to do with – so I've learned that. That's been part of my growing process. And that's critical, too. A lot of people I went to the Taxi Music Conference last year and the CD Baby one, and it's amazing to me. I look at this as a process, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm open, and I listen, and ultimately you hear 10 different opinions, and you pick one, and that's the reason. But other people are closed-minded. They think, no, I'm not changing my song. And there's instructors, world-renowned platinum record, telling people, look, you saying I love you, it's boring. It's been said a million times. Try to say your face paints a smile on my soul, and there's other ways to say it. And I feel like I'm very open to suggestion, which has helped me a lot. And one of the recommendations I would give any of your fans listening, like I said, if you're a painter, an artist, a singer, try to get better. Don't be closed-minded and think you've arrived. Even if you have arrived, you have a number one hit, you're not going to replicate it. Nothing stands still.
Right. I agree 150%. And what's neat, too, which is the next thing we're rolling right into, which is you pride yourself, as you go, or rather, as I refer to it, the imperfection in creating your music, meaning that you don't sugarcoat things, like you don't cover this up or cover this up. It's obvious when you're constructing music there's going to be flaws to it. And you're very particular about mentioning things like that. And I like that. I like the fact that you hold no bones to say when you're creating original music, it's not going to be polished. It's not going to be perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I made a decision when I started my first year. I essentially had no confidence. I thought I was kind of getting better, but I really wasn't very confident vocally. I would do takes, and I'd, send them to someone to mix them, and he'd be like, oh, redo that. And I was kind of like just very haphazard. And as I continued practicing, as I started learning more about the process, the biggest thing, again, if I ever make it, I think I could have a how to sing better course, and it'd be like 5 easy things. But there are just a lot of common mistakes people make because they're never trained. They never know any better. And people will sit and yell at you and tell you your voice is horrible. And really, there's just a couple things you can do to correct things. But at the end of the day, if you can speak, you can sing. And you're just not going to appeal to everyone. If you appeal to 0.1% of the world, you've got a super hit. And you have to kind of, I love seeing things like from the Beatles or from, what's her name, the one that wrote Harry Potter's, and they show their rejection letters online where people told the Beatles and told her, like, your writing's terrible, you suck, you'll never make it, and then they become a superstar. So you have to stick to your guns a little bit, but at the end of the day, your voice is your own, and you're not going to appeal to everyone. And I was very like, okay, that drum beat's got to be perfect. I've got to time that perfectly on the vocal. Whereas the last 6 months, and this is going to reflect really in next year's music, it's okay where stuff is not perfect. I'm an indie artist. I've never used the studio. I've never used People are like shocked. They're like, wait, you record in your family room that has terrible acoustics? And I'm like, yeah, I do. Now, does it sound, some people are like, oh, that sounds professional stuff. Yeah, okay, but again, it's not. And I think that's okay. If you want robotic, perfect music, everyone knows what to do. And again, I'm not going to slight people that have number one hit songs and everything sounds perfect. That's okay, and I sometimes, like once a year or twice a year, will try to replicate that. But that's not me. That's not my story. And I don't think people, they're going to see me live and be like, oh, my God, that sounds totally different. I want it to sound real.
Well, and that leads us right to the next question, because to those of you that are listening that don't know this, he actually does all of the vocals, does all of this recording on an iMac, which I found really interesting because, first of all, it speaks to the technological leaps and bounds that we've taken, obviously, because it used to be you had to go into studio and do all this good stuff. And I assume, I'm assuming right now, you've recorded both in studio as well as at home, or has it just been all at home?
All at home. I've never recorded in a studio. Yeah.
Okay, so talk to people a little bit about that might be intrigued to do or utilize an idea like this. How challenging or how constructive is it to do everything on an iMac? Is that perhaps a better way to go?
I don't know if it's a better way to go, and it's very difficult. And again, over 3 years, I've learned a lot of do's and don'ts, but I would love nothing more than to have the budget to go to a professional studio with someone I trust, lay down the vocals, and then walk away like I used to do 3 years ago, and let someone mix it and send it back to me, and I'm like, oh, change this, that doesn't sound good, or that. Whereas now, at the other extreme, I'm sitting there doing everything, and it'll take me 5 hours to edit something, and then another. It takes a very long time, but I think it's important to know how to do both. Because what's happened to me is there's people that used to mix things for me, and now I've realized, well, I'm better than them. And not only is that going to save you money, but it also teaches you, because when you're singing, when you look at, I used to use autotune, and the mixers had to use autotune for my stuff because I just wasn't as good. And now what I've learned, when you look at some of the pitch correction, you're like, oh, okay, you know what, I'm always falling flat. Or when I'm starting, and it helps you correct your singing. So there's a lot of teaching to it, but there's no question that a studio is going to sound better. And you're going to be able to, one of the biggest sources of frustration for me, even though I have a nice mic, and I have kind of this little sound barrier thing, analog noise. I hate it, you know. And on the one hand, you're like, well, I don't want to yell into the mic. And it just, a studio would be better, but again, then you're going to have to add a couple grand per song. And then you're going to be rushed. You know, if you just feel like, hey, I have a couple hours here, I can record this song, I don't have anything else this afternoon. If you're in a studio, you plan for it, people get nervous, they go there, they're like, oh my God, I'm going to pay how much per hour, and they try to rush, and it doesn't feel right. So that's my answer.
Gotcha. Now, interestingly enough, we're getting to the releases and things like that. But first, you did a Christmas album. Now, that just literally knocked me off my feet, because I was like, really? So I just want to know, or you can explain to the audience, because it seemed very out of character for you. And I don't know if you did that on purpose, because I know you do like to surprise your fans and your followers. But I just thought, what? Huh? You did a Christmas album? And, of course, I didn't hear it, so I'm like, I assume that it's good. But I'm like, where does all that come from?
So, my first year, as I started going through this, I really like surprising fans. And they had no clue it was coming. So on Black Friday, like a week or two after I released my first CD, I was like, hey, here's a surprise CD. And it had 4 originals, 10 covers, and then it had like 9 short stories, like, you know, The Night Before Christmas, and me saying it with sound effects. And so I kind of wanted to make a family type thing that, you know, you could have playing in the background and tell your kids, hey, listen, here's a story of, you know, Santa Claus or whatever. And, of course, there's classics on there like Joy to the World and Silent Night. But in retrospect, when I listen to that, I can pick out so many mistakes and errors. So I can tell you that at some point in the future, I'm going to do another Christmas CD just because and it's interesting you bring that up, because all of a sudden I looked at I was looking at my CD Baby stats, and all of a sudden, like, the Christmas CD sold like $130 worth of stuff like last month. And I was like, how did that happen? It's like August. Like, who's buying Christmas stuff in August? But my motivation, we didn't talk about this, is I love Christmas. It's my favorite holiday of the year.
Aww, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I felt like I had to do that.
Yeah, like I said, it just kind of struck me by surprise, because I was like, okay, that's interesting. So I had to ask about it, of course.
Sure.
Now, I want to talk about the really neat thing about your music, because, first of all, as you mentioned, 33% of the funds goes to different charities, which are chosen by fans, which I think is even neater. So explain the purpose behind that, meaning why do you allow the fans to do that? Why the 33%? Because I really, really think that's fundamentally important. It speaks volumes about who you are.
Yeah, again, when I thought about what do I want to be known for, to be remembered for, and what's my vision, you know, to me, I really want my music shared. You know, if it's on iTunes or Spotify, no one's heard it, I figured it's not serving me or anyone. And so that's why I'm pretty much giving everything away for free. And I want people to share it. And then my second goal is I want them to hit the play button and just to play it over and over. So when I thought about all that, you know, and of course because of my dad, I said, you know, my dad died from lung cancer, and I really want to give back. And I figure if I make it, people understand what I do for a day job, and then they'll say, okay, I get the charity thing too now. But it was really important to me, and initially I wanted to give 100% of everything away. And I met some contacts in L.A., and they're like, look, you can't do that. They're like, first of all, forget percent of sales. You don't realize how expensive everything is. Do it based on profit. And then I was like, all right, well, I'll do like 75% of profit. And I'm like, listen, don't do more than a third, because if you ever sign with a label, they're going to take 95% of everything anyway. If you ever, so they kind of talked me down to 33%, and that's been a cool number. And again, I'm honest with people. I still have not made a profit, not even close. But last year I donated a couple grand just because I just like to do it. and I hope that number gets bigger and bigger. And that's just the goal. I mean, why not? Why not do it? I don't need 10 cars. I don't need 10 houses. I mean, that's just something that would make me feel better about myself.
Yes, and unfortunately there's not enough of you people, that's for sure. It's just amazing to me the lengths to which you have gone to make sure that people get an opportunity to share in your art. It's just amazing to me, absolutely incredible. I'm sure you hear that all the time, though. I'm going to guess.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's humbling.
You're quite welcome.
I don't think of it as me doing something special because I feel like this is the beginning, and I want to get so much bigger in terms of what I can donate to charity. And I tell people all the time, I'd love to do charity concerts all over the world. If people pay for the expenses of the band to get there, I'll come do a free concert in the Philippines or China or anywhere, because if I can, help raise money for some charity in any part of the world, why not?
That is just amazing, absolutely. And what I find ironic as I'm sitting here listening to you is you have neglected to mention, and I waited to this point to mention it, but you have won all these different accolades for your music. Does that not speak volumes also about your success to some extent to you, or is that just more of a surreal sort of, yeah, it's nice, but?
When I got nominated my first year for the IMEA award, I was like, wow, this is so cool. And then, I flew out there, and then I didn't win, but I was like, that's okay. This was just cool to be nominated. And the way I think about that stuff now, when I was a kid, I would watch the Grammys and Oscars and everything, and then for the longest part, I didn't watch anything until about 2 years ago. And now I kind of watch a lot of the shows again, even the MTV Video Awards. And so I'm kind of torn. On the one hand, I have become mature enough where I've realized, hey, I'm not making it overnight, and I don't want to, because I want to build something that lasts forever. So none of that matters to me anymore. I'm not doing it. Now, the flip side is, just like I want to perform in Soldier Field, just like I'd love to be an extra for free on Star Wars or any Marvel movie, one of the things is, sure, you do want to win an award, because it doesn't mean that what you did is, hey, you're a great lyricist because you got this award, but there's a little bit of, the next time you see some review that says this guy can't write worth a crap, or this, it just makes you feel a little bit better about yourself, that you're not wasting your time, or that not the whole world thinks you're a terrible singer. So a part of you does want it, but I don't obsess about it. I don't even aim for it, to be honest with you. And most of the awards I've gotten are on the smaller side, but again, I'm humble. I like anything that I get, and I hope one day to win, Oscars and Grammys and any kind of award, but it's not going to change anything about me. I'm still going to wake up every day hungry, trying to get better, because that's all I can do. That's all I can control.
Now, you'll happen to notice, or maybe you didn't notice, but when I tagged your show today, just as I do with any other person, you're listed as a celebrity. And I consider this a celebrity interview because any person that entertains, informs, educates, or motivates another human being, in my opinion, is considered a celebrity. You probably wear that tag better than most people that I interview because of the fact that you recognize the need for humility, the need for charity, and the need to bring your art to as many people as possible so it touches them. I want to read this off so that people listen to this. For the little that he makes of this, he has been number 2 on the pop charts in Reverb Nation. He's won for Best Song Award for What If I Never See You, the Best Rock Song for Easy to Believe, the Best Pop Rock Album for Not Where I Want to Be, the Best Pop Song for I Sing, the Best Rock Music Video for We Accept the Love We Think We Deserve, love that song, and Best Singer-Songwriter for A Mission of Heart I Sing. Not bad, young man, for a man who's so humble. I'm just going to throw that out there. So now we've come to the really great part that everybody always waits for, which is I get to play some of your music. So you have one of 2 choices. I'm going to have you talk about both of these. Hero Falls, which is, of course, I saw you wearing your little superhero thingy. It was so cute as a grown man wearing a super, yeah, that's kind of weird. Anyways, there's the Hero Falls, which, of course, has the accompanying music video along with a song. And then, of course, there's Whiskey, which is your new release, which is a country song. I have both. I can play either or. But talk to the fans, of course, about these 2 new songs. How you came up with both of them. Whiskey you talked about a little bit, so maybe we should talk about Hero Falls. And then we'll play one of the two of them for our audience.
Sure. I think, Hero Falls probably makes more sense.
Okay.
Just because, we talked about stories and folk songs, and when I thought about Hero Falls, I have recently in the last 6 months, I was approached to do some music for like TV shows and movies, and I realized that really what most of those venues want is instrumentals. So that's why I released the surprise solo instrumental CD last year, and this year there'll be a second CD that's all instrumentals, full instrumentals. So when I thought about Hero Falls, I said, I want to make a movie soundtrack type song. When I think of movies like Gladiator, Star Wars, something about a hero. And the hero can, basically be in some kind of battle, and he, goes to his significant other to spend some time. But again, there's all these double meanings in it, and at the very end, basically, he goes off to battle knowing he's not going to come back. So I just thought, when you look at the story, this is definitely that kind of song. And when I picked a charity for it and the fans helped me, I picked Star Wars Force for Change because I thought, when I look at George Lucas, again, I've heard he's Greek. I've never met him. I've always wanted to, but he's one of my role models. And I think what he did with Star Wars was absolutely amazing. And I think, again, they donate to many charities around the world, and I just thought that would be a really cool song. But I wanted to do a song that could be a movie soundtrack for, again, those kinds of movies, Gladiator, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, just something that I thought could be touching, and that's what I did.
Nice, very nice. Well, we'll see what our listening audience has to say, and I'll give you a break from talking, and we'll play Hero Falls.
Sure.
Abandoned this thirsty, ravaged land. He's weary after long, effortful day. Takes off his heavy armor, she asks if he feels okay. He stirs her endlessly, fresh hair. She grins and looks playfully where he fancies her devoted eyes and shy smile. She's happy he made it to the end of the day. A long day forgotten with a slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in embracing, they seem so at peace. She tended stitches and happy home. This lucky glowing to some, forget the anger lurking outside. Maybe this is the last twinkle. Who knows what tomorrow brings? They just enjoy each other's company. Their hearts forget almost everything. A long day forgotten with a slip of the tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in love. There are soldiers outside, shivering to the bone, with no love life or soothing eyes tonight. But these two are happily sleeping inside. It's time to wake up now, but he's not wanting to leave. The sheets are where he wants to stay. Together, softly they breathe, then he whispers as he walks away, my love, thank you for what you do for me. The unyielding stars might call out my name, but tonight we'll make better memories. A meaningful night remembered for the slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls in love. A long day forgotten for the slip of a tongue. The battle-hardened hero falls. A long day forgotten with a slip of the tongue. This battle-hardened hero might fall, but will always be in love.
Now, does that seem a little funny when do you have a hard time listening to yourself? Because, like, some performers are like, I never listen to myself or I never watch myself. Is that a problem for you?
No, I
Just curious.
do so much editing of videos and and having a focus and really listening and making sure that nothing's off. That I've gotten used to it by this point. When I first started, I had a hard time listening because I was like, oh, that's so bad. Oh, I wish it was better. But
Okay.
no, I've gotten over that now.
Awesome, though. I mean, and that's good that you're able to do that. And, too, do you ever critique yourself? Because I tend to do that. Like, I'll write something, and I'm like, wait, that's no good. Yeah, I think we're all our own worst critics, so to speak. Definitely. So now I have two final questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I've gotten better because the first video, Not Where I Want to Be, I literally must have spent about 100 hours editing that. So I've kind of realized that I've just got to let go. Not everything's going to be perfect. And
Correct.
People aren't going to realize that there's a reason that font looks like that, or that comes in at that point, or that hits on.
Sure.
So I overthink things or overthunk things much more than probably most people ever realized. So I've learned to let go, a little bit.
And letting go can be very important, I think, and not only for the performer themselves, but just it makes the transition and the process easier because it's hard enough to perform live music and be original and come up with new and different things. You don't want your job to get harder, in essence. So I give you a lot of credit. It takes a lot. To go out on a limb and produce something successful from a musical standpoint nowadays is really tough. And to make it popular and to get the audience attention, you do a very good job, my friend. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Thank you.
It's very, very evident. That's quite all right. Now, before I forget, I want to ask a couple business questions, which is, of course, you're known as Sarantos, and then it's Melogia. Did I get that right?
So the name is Sarantos. It's just one name. But when I looked at, okay, what is my website going to be? What's my company going to be called? Sarantos was taken, and Melogia or Meloia in Greek means with words. So I thought, hey, you know what? Since I'm all about the lyrics, that's a cool website. And then when I named the corporation, I named it Sarantos Meloia. So a lot of sites, when they're like, what's your first name, what's your last name? But the artist name is just Sarantos. But the company name is Sarantos Meloia, and the website is meloia.com.
Yes, you betcha. And we're going to go through all those things in just a moment. Now, I did not want to forget to mention this because, of course, your fans are optimal when it comes to picking out the charities. So people that are listening in today, if they have a suggestion or if they want to throw something out at you for consideration in terms of a charity standpoint, how do they go about doing something like that?
So I'm everywhere, so they can hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever they want. But everything, the central hub is the website, so it's www.melogia.com. And my preferred thing, like if they, message me on Instagram and say, hey, I want to recommend the charity, what I kind of always tell people to do is email me, because the email is just easier for me to organize it. And then sometimes I'll do a survey or ask like my elite group of fans, hey, someone suggested this, what do you guys think? But most of the time, to be honest with you, if a fan suggests something that makes sense and I'm like, hey, in 3 months I have this song coming out and I think the double meaning to the song would fit, whatever, Misericordia, Cancer, American Lung Association, whatever it is, I just pick it. It's not like they have to go through this arduous process and go through a contest to get their charity chosen. And I've had charities themselves suggest things. I've had people that have, families that have cystic fibrosis or they have certain illnesses that suggest things. And I'm open because I don't want to keep picking the same charities over and over.
Of course. I understand completely. So now, let's go through that list so that everybody listening in will make it easier for you. If you wish to hear any of his music, I'm going to list these things off for you. Obviously, YouTube, and that's where you can also see the videos, too, as well for the music. SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, iTunes, CD Baby. To spell out the website for you, it's www.melogia.com. And, of course, he has also got a handle, and it's all the same for Facebook, for Twitter, and for Instagram. And it's spelled Sarantos and then Meloia. So it's basically two words wrapped into one. Is there anything I missed in terms of where else people can find you?
No, I mean, anywhere they can think. Like I said, if it's Spotify or Deezer or anything, but if they forget, if they just Google Sarantos, it'll pop up, So even if they don't remember anything, that's the easiest thing to do. If they can't remember the website, it'll pop up number one. And I encourage people to email, to interact, and engage on social media because I have no ad agency, so it's just me. I respond back personally to everything. And I love the interaction.
I agree.
It's part of it.
And it's nice, and you get to know your fan base, and you get to know what they like and what they don't like, and you're 100% on board. I mean, perfect. I mean, that's exactly how it should be, and I wish everybody was more like that in terms of that, because nowadays we live in the lands of publicists and managers and all that good stuff. So it was kind of nice to talk to a real person when I booked you and get you on the show and play original music. I think it's absolutely awesome.
Sure.
Now, I just want to ask, do we have an upcoming event or a gig or someplace where we can see your pretty little face play in person? I hope.
Like I said, I had some stuff that was going to happen, but now that I'm back to not having a full band and rehearsing, I'm going to probably have to cancel those things in the next 2 months, I think.
Oh, no.
So I'm hoping. But I also have – I was going to go this year to China for a couple weeks to play at some big venues, and the promoter that is doing it said he'll hold a spot for next year. So I hope to God that I'm performing live gigs next year. Otherwise, I'm going to explode. But I definitely want to.
And now you have this great, obviously you've done other interviews before, but certainly we'll see what I can do. I know people everywhere, and Chicago is 90 miles away from me. If I can't help to find you a gig there, I don't know who could. I know everybody that there is to know. And, once you have heard someone's music, and it's not just your music. It's the fact that you're relatable. It's the fact that you're a regular guy walking into a regular bar, playing regular music that people can relate to, that he's written by himself, promotes by himself. A lot of people get that, a lot more than the publicist circuit, so to speak. And I love my publicists, and I use them all the time in terms of booking, but you know what I'm saying, obviously, and I think that people relate to that, definitely. So I have to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Please promise me that you'll come back again, definitely. I will stay in contact with you in terms of that because I have every intention of shopping you around for a gig. Well, and I have a recommendation for a charitable good that I'll send over to you. But I'm just so grateful that you are patient enough to wait for me to finally get to you. I appreciate your time, your music, and I cannot thank you, and this comes from many, many people, for all the wonderful, kind things that you've done without asking for anything back in return. It almost makes you angelic, so to speak. And I know you don't look at yourself that way, but you probably don't get commended enough for doing the things that you do. So here I am on my show in a very public way saying I hold a lot of people together when I say, yeah, you should be thanked for this. It matters.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Your words mean the world to me, and comments like that keep me going. Yeah, thank you.
Well, and that's the
and
truth.
Thank you to your
you
fans,
do need
too,
to know
for
that.
listening.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Well, definitely, and certainly you have an open invitation. I'll be in contact. I'll start circulating around, talking to people. People owe me some favors and this and that. Not that you can't hold your own merit, but sometimes it takes 2 knocks on that door. You know what I'm talking about, right? You got to knock twice.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
And you know what I've done, too? On the website is there's a thing on the top, I'll go perform anywhere, and if fans just, it's like a form they submit, and once I have at least X number of fans that want me to go to Portland, Oregon, or somewhere, then it makes it easier, to find a venue and say, hey, listen, I have 100 people that want me to come here, and then it doesn't waste their time, my time, and it's just easier for everyone. So that, and I think it's like $5 they put down, and then I know they're serious about coming a gig out there, and that seems like it's going to be the future anyway. Yeah.
Well, we'll just wait and see, definitely. But, yeah, like I said, I'll be in touch. This has just been such a delight, and I'm so glad we got it done. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come on the show. And just to let you know, and everybody that follows you, within the hour, this becomes an archived episode, so they can go back to this link, listen to it anytime that they want, obviously, and all that good stuff. So, yeah, we're all set. It's been a pleasure, my dear, and I'll be in touch soon.
Likewise. Thank you, Cindy. Okay, have a great day.
All right, dear. You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Folks, wasn't he absolutely wonderful? And again, that is Sarantos. Just to let you know, I'll go ahead and do all of his social media links one more time. YouTube, SoundCloud, Reverb Nation, iTunes, CD Baby. The website is www.melogia.com. And then, of course, the Twitter and the Facebook and Instagram are all tied to the same thing. And it's SARANTOSMELOGIA. So once again, thank you so much to Sarantos for all of the good that you do, for using your voice for good, for using your time and your talents. As I said, can't be appreciated enough whatsoever. Want to remind everybody that tomorrow, 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, Rashid Stevens is coming on my show, and he is actually an LA-based not only actor, but also stand-up comedian. So I'm looking forward to having him on the show at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And want to remind everybody, 1 week from today, big show. In fact, the first biker show back, George Christie, History Channel, Outlaw Chronicles, coming out with a new book, Front Street, XL on Front Street to be exact, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time on Sun Spotlight Channel. Please spread the word. I thank you so very much for listening in today, for all my fans, for all my followers. I appreciate you today, tomorrow, and always. And I look forward to seeing you Friday. Have a good night.
All you need is love. We love the Beat Bugs. And Target is the only place you can find them and all their gear. Come join the fun and jam with us. Love is all you need.
What you doing? Ran out of space on my phone, so I'm deleting some stuff. Bye, singing dog. Bye, goal.
I pronounce you.
Bye, wedding ceremony.
Stop. At Metro PCS, you get 2 free phones with twice as much memory.
Really?
Don't say bye to your memories. Switch to Metro PCS and get 2 free LG K20 Plus phones with 32 gigs when you switch 2 lines. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included in phone price. Excludes numbers on the T-Mobile network. See store for details and terms and conditions.